Good evening, everyone. I'd like to thank all of you for joining us this evening. My name is Brandon Heinrich, and I am one of the co coordinators for the Downstate New York ADAPT Accessibility Working Group and the Transportation Equity Working Group. We have partnered this evening with one of our partners, Southern Minnesota ADAPT, who will be helping us with this presentation. I see we have one member of Southern Minnesota ADAPT here this evening. It's a pleasure to have you here, along with absolutely everyone else. So it's a real pleasure. I'll just do a visual description of myself. I am a white male, black hair, blue eyes. I'm sitting at my desk with my coffee cup next to me, two windows that are currently closed because it's freezing out, and it's really a pleasure to have all of you here. We have a really fun-filled and jam-packed agenda tonight, so I really want to thank the people who have made this possible, made this extremely um, uh, made this really well. We have a really great turnout. I'm sorry people are coming in as this is happening, so this is really exciting. I just want to go through a couple of housekeeping rules before we actually get into the first speakers, because there's two first speakers. Everyone is muted as they come in. Please remain muted throughout the duration of the presentation until it's time to ask questions or until you're asked to speak. We have a couple of commands for that. If you'd like to unmute, it's Alt A if you're a JAWS user, or Alt A will mute you again. You could click on it, or you could go down to the bottom of the screen if you are a phone user. For the phone users, we don't have any phone users at this moment, but when you come in to raise your hand, it's star 9. Star 9 will lower your hand as well. Star 6 will mute and unmute respectively on the phone. So without further ado, I'd like to get into our first speakers. We have Jessica De La Rosa and Jose Hernandez, who have a really, really great presentation for all of you tonight to start all this off. So when you're ready, the floor is yours.
Hello, everyone.
Hi, how are you? He's searching for the presentation. I don't know why he was under the impression we were not showing it. What am I doing?
The name?
Okay, got it. So really quickly, my name is Jessica De La Rosa. What's up? I am a voluptuous, delicious Puerto Rican woman of the plus size nature. Fair skin. I'm sitting in my hair straight. I straighten my hair because it's cold outside and it can deal with it. And behind me, I have my sofa with my fall decor sitting next to my lovely partner here, Jose.
Hello, everyone. My name is Jose Hernandez. I am a Spanish man with fresh haircut. I'm wearing a Yankee cap with a black hoodie, sitting in the same spot as Jessica with the fall colors behind us and a gray wall behind us.
He's sitting too close if you ask me, but that's a whole other story.
Did she just say that? And her man, but I'm too close now.
COVID, it's cold. No,
Here we go.
you know. So
we're gonna be traveling to different destinations.
So I absolutely love traveling. When he and I got together, it was kind of like, dude, you better start liking traveling, otherwise we're gonna have to fix that. I've traveled my whole life. I've traveled to many different places.
Correct.
And
Back again.
Many different places. And I'm sorry, he's distracting me. And as a wheelchair user, I didn't mention that part. I'm a power wheelchair user. I I had to and my mom's also disabled. My mom has cerebral palsy. My mom's also a wheelchair user. So I had to learn how to navigate that. And so over the course of all the years, traveling to many different places in the country, out of the country, I learned different tips and tricks that I want to go ahead and share with you guys real quick.
And I'm also a power wheelchair user. So we're gonna share our presentation.
Okay, can those of us see? Yeah,
those who can see, can you
Can
guys
you
see
see
it?
that?
Just give a thumbs up.
Okay,
All
cool,
right,
thank you.
you.
Okay, so yeah, I touched on this earlier. I love to travel. I've been to Europe, Canada, Bahamas, Haiti, Miami, just to name a few places. Go ahead. So preparing to travel. So this to me is is the important part, like one of the most important parts. And also my perspective is coming from a wheelchair user. I know I said that, so a lot of this doesn't relate to other disabilities. So this is more for my seated folks. But and people who use other equipment too. You want to avoid any layovers because it'll decrease your chances of having any equipment damaged or left behind, anything like that. You want to make sure that you purchase your ticket on the cargo loading side of the plane, and it's typically on the right side, so this way you can see what they're doing. And I tend to record them in case something does happen. And when returning, you want to arrange your transportation an hour and a half after your scheduled landing.
And it's very important, the layovers, because Jessica has a story where she went to Colorado,
Utah.
to Utah, or she was returning from Utah, and her plane didn't arrive in New York. It stayed in Utah.
No, my chair.
Your chair.
You said plane.
Oh, yeah.
My chair stayed in Utah, so, and I was very unhappy. But I got it back that same night. There's to skip that. This is just a quick video of how they have changed their method of getting the wheelchairs onto the plane. Some of them use a lift now that brings it up to the belt, and then the belt is electric, so it brings the chair up the belt into the plane. And that's very new because in the beginning it used to be like a 5-man lift, and things would definitely happen. So here on this side, I have a picture of a paper,
A sign.
thank you, that I put on my seat pan, which is underneath your cushion. And so I took a picture pointing at the little lever to put your chair on manual or power, and pointed at it. I also wrap like colorful stickers on it before I travel. So this way, in the note, I'll say you can push the yellow levers down, so that they know which to put it on drive, which way is to put it on drive so they can push, because I do not let them drive my chair.
And normally on this sign, we also have our phone numbers, just in case they have any hiccups, they can give us a call while we're still on the plane.
Yeah. So at the airport, we do not travel light, both of us
No.
being disabled folks. So something important to know is that medical equipment does travel for free. However, that doesn't mean you just say there's medical equipment in the bag and you just go through, because they do check. And if they check and it's not in there, they will charge you. So your wheelchair charger, transfer board, it says bowl, but it's supposed to say bowel and bladder care supplies. Also count as medical equipment. You're
Traveling with a Hoyer lift.
traveling with a Hoyer lift or a secondary chair is also permitted for free.
And for those,
Join the meeting.
I'm just gonna.
Did we lose them?
They appear frozen, Brandon.
I think they're frozen.
Oh.
Uh-oh.
All right, we'll give them a few moments to
Mhm.
recuperate themselves here. Gotta love the technical difficulties. Well, hopefully they'll... Oh, here we go.
We want to apologize. My computer crashed.
I noticed! Oh, well.
So I got on my phone.
Okay.
Give me 1 minute and we'll restart in the computer again.
Okay.
Okie dokes, we'll be here. Hi, Jessica. Hi, Brandon.
Hello, hello. Welcome to everyone new that's coming in. We're just having some technical problems, and we'll be with all of you in a moment, and we will get back to a wonderful presentation. I just want to note that Colleen wrote in the chat that she likes the tip about putting the phone number on there. That is a good idea.
Hey, Mark Edwards. How's Cuddles?
Elizabeth, I like your shirt.
Oh, thank you. Free our people.
Yeah.
All right, so you got to account for little things that happen here, folks. We'll get them on just shortly to finish this, and we don't want to lose people. There we go. Okay, back to our regularly scheduled programming.
Yep, right back to it.
Sorry about
I'm
that.
so sorry, y'all, that we're bringing the presentation back up. Jeez.
That is a first for me.
My computer was just, goodbye, stop talking.
Literally blue screen.
All right.
And we got it up
Press
as
got it. Press got
fast
it.
as possible. And I'm gonna put up the slides again. Again, our apologies.
Unreal. You were right there. Go
So-
to the C-pan. No?
Press it.
Here?
Yeah.
Okay. So I think I finished saying, we said for whatever we wanted to. Oh, you were gonna describe the pictures. Sorry, y'all.
Oh, yes. So, and I was just describing the picture. The picture is actually a suitcase with an entire shower chair in it. Like she
In
was,
pieces, not like a gigantic shower chair bag, you know.
yeah, it's a shower chair that can come apart and it's extremely heavy. And like Jessica said, we don't travel light.
Literally. You got it? Okay, so for those of us who travel with service dogs, this is a little, because it has since changed. I haven't, updated it. A lot of places, airlines now have it so that you have to get a form filled out in advance and they just want like the basic information. But the obvious stuff is make sure that you have a leash. You have to be on a leash at all times. Your service dog can't sit in the seat. It has to obviously be behaved and sat in front of you. And the thing that I love the most is that there's a lot of service dog. Well, no, it's just a dog release area in a lot of the airports now, which is pretty cool. My dog actually ended up was sick one of the last times we went on vacation. She had diarrhea. And anyway, so that little relief area came in handy, and thank God she was good for the rest of the flight. Yes, so here we have pictured our travel Hoyer lift. This thing folds and it's on wheels. Well, Hoyer lifts are on wheels, but it folds collapsible, and that also travels for free.
Oh, wow.
So before you board, it's ideal to take a video of any of your medical equipment that you're bringing with you, your wheelchair, have your boarding pass up, like hold it in your hands, do a 360, nice, slowly. And I stay in front of the gate because it has saved me in the past where an incident has happened, and the carpeting was able to identify that I was in said airport at the time. So yeah.
So you want to document the condition that your chair was in when you are taking
Taking
off.
off.
And then when you land, if anything was to happen, you have your proof saying, I was at this gate, I handed my chair to this person, and it came back to me in this condition. So, and if you have damage to your chair, do not leave the airport before reporting it, because then they will say that it's your problem.
Literally, like you could just go out in front and they're like, well, you left. Pictured here, I have two pictures of my joystick. One showing that for me, it's a little bit convenient where my wire is. Some people might have to like follow that wire and locate. Sometimes you can't, sometimes it's, within the chair. But in this picture, my joystick, the way it connects to its power source and the joystick itself is easy to disconnect. And then I have a joystick rain protector that I use to cover the joystick. And I put a label on the inside that says, don't touch, don't drive my chair. Thank you. This is just to help avoid these people from driving the chair. And also before I unplug the joystick, I put it into like tilt and elevate mode, because even if they take off the bag, even if they plug it in and they want to still attempt to drive it, most of these morons don't know how to take it out of tilt and
Safety.
elevate. Yeah.
And that usually sets the chair off into a safety mode so it doesn't drive really fast.
So boarding, you'll always be pre-boarded if you need assistance and have stowed items. Take off your leg rest, your headrest, your joystick, if at all possible. Anything that you can take off, I encourage you to bring them on board with you. And then on your wheelchair, physically buckle your seatbelt together so it doesn't drag in the wheel.
There has been cases where people leave their leg rest on their manual wheelchairs and they come back and they are missing one. Don't let this happen to you. Thankfully, that person, their leg rest was found in the cargo of the plane. In my case, this is my power chair. I have a mid mount leg rest system, so I can't take off my leg rest. So what I do to protect my leg rest, I bought a yoga block and I literally just put a yoga block behind my leg rest so that in the event of contact with other luggage or parts of the plane, my leg rest doesn't get pushed in too far or get broken. So something simple as a yoga block can protect you from damage from wherever travels you come from. I find that my armrest actually bends more than my leg rest.
We don't want to bend things that shouldn't bend though. Deboarding. To me, this is one of the most important things. I think for most of us who have seen like a lot of news stuff around this, people who get off the plane and their wheelchair isn't there or their wheelchair is damaged or whatever the case may be, and they're stuck in an aisle chair or one of those airport chairs for an excessive amount of time. And for somebody like me, I am a non-ambulatory wheelchair user. So when I sit on a flight, no matter how long it is, 2 hours or 8 hours or whatever, I'm usually not using the bathroom. So when my plane lands, I am desperate to get to the toilet. And I don't want to go from a chair to a chair to a chair to a chair. So I never get off the plane unless my chair is outside of the door waiting for me. And a lot of times they'll try bully tactics to get you off the plane and say, oh, you're costing the airline so much money. That's like a personal problem, not a Jessica problem. You handle that, and I will sit here and wait for my. He's been with me. I'm not doing it. I will sit right here and wait.
It can also be a deceptive matter. They might not want to bring your chair because there was damage to it. I can tell you a story of a person's chair that was left on the tarmac on a rainy day, and they transferred her onto one of those aisle chairs where they didn't know where her chair was for hours.
So moral of the story, don't let them pay those fines for taking off late.
Yeah.
And
Red cap service.
Yeah, red cap service is provided to you to help, you get through security and pushing bags, you give a few dollars. A lot of them say no, but I do, whatever. So international flights, when I've gone to like Europe, the flight is long, and I try my best not to go to the bathroom, but they do provide an onboard aisle chair for those flights. The issue that I encountered again as a non-ambulatory wheelchair user was that when I was brought up to the bathroom, the chair itself didn't fit into the door. They had to remove the door off the hinges, then get the aisle chair into the bathroom, and then hold a drape up while I went to the bathroom, which was fine for me because at least I got to relieve myself. But it's something to take into account.
When you gotta go, you gotta
I gotta go. I peed in my seat. in a cup. You gotta do what you gotta do, you know what I'm saying?
Prepare for the destination.
Oh, sorry, yeah.
And
This
you
is
got
a
a little-
picture, by the way, of me in Canada. I'm on top of the Canadian National Tower. They had something called the Edge. And so I'm hanging off the side, which is great.
She's literally 1,300
Six
plus,
hundred, give me every inch.
1,600 feet in the air
Mhm.
on a platform. And she's on a wheelchair that's strapped down to all types of things.
So hotels, when scouting out accessibility features, it can be helpful to contact the hotel in advance and explain your physical needs. You can even request pictures of the potential room, depending on the type of hotel. You know, sometimes they'll give you a little resistance, but for the most part, you're good. They'll email you stuff.
I've actually had one of the guys go up and video chat with us while he was in the room. I was like, that was amazing.
Yeah. And for those of us who need to get like under the bed because of Hoyer lift legs, you gotta make sure that the hotel bed isn't a boxed frame, because that may or may not be an issue for you.
And you can definitely request that they remove items, furniture that you do not need. And
Like a
or-
coffee table
Yeah, or a chair.
or a chair. I
In
don't
our
need that.
case. So this is a picture of the hotel room that we stayed in Puerto Rico, very large, king size. Bathroom was huge.
Yeah. Research your transportation. So you wanna secure and do research for accessible travel. So our paratransit that we have here, Accessoride, can be transferred to other states that provide a paratransit service, and you can go on there as a guest pass. Something important to note though is like New York City, we have a 24-hour system because our subway system is 24 hours. So other states don't do that. So that's something to keep in mind when making your arrangements. You know, we've used this in Miami most recently. Albany, when we go to Albany, Boston, they have paratransit. So we use our Accessoride on a guest pass over there.
And then you have other states like Toronto in Canada, Washington DC that are they have an extremely accessible public transportation network.
Extremely. Thank you, Andy Byford. Wait, no. All buses are accessible. Oh, yeah, you did.
all buses are
Sorry.
accessible.
So some destinations that they cruise, they have a cruise that docks there, they offer accessible shuttles. So that's something you could utilize. You can hire them, you know, to help you schlep around when they're not shuttling the cruises.
So in our case, when we went to Puerto Rico, there isn't really a vast accessible public transportation network, but since there is a cruise line that lands there, they have accessible shuttles. So we reached out to one of the shuttle companies to get us from the airport to our hotel.
Which was better than a taxi because in our case, we're two wheelchair users, so we didn't have to travel in two separate taxis, which we've had to do in other places in the past. But in this circumstance, we were able to travel together with our luggage and everything else. I don't remember.
Oh, that was Vegas.
Oh, if you don't have access to travel equipment such as, if you don't have the Hoyer lift like we have, you can reach out to medical supply places nearby over there and rent them, or other disability organizations out there. They may also have, you know, some system set up where you could rent their equipment.
And if you forget something like I did, like an idiot, you can order Amazon next day. We brought the Hoyer lift and forgot the sling, which was kind of pointless.
And then you want to make sure that nothing happened, and you know, we all cross our fingers and our toes and nothing happened, but research local wheelchair repair places near to where you're staying.
Sailing, this is all you.
Cruising. Are we good on time? Brandon, what do you want us to do?
Yeah, no, you have time.
Okay, so when preparing to sail, depending on your own personal insurance and its restrictions, you may want to consider getting travelers insurance in case any medical emergency does arise. You want to reach out to the cruise line for to their accessibility service department. They can answer any questions about the room, and you'll need to fill out their specific documentation to secure an ADA room, and they're really strict on that. If you get there and you look like you're not a person who needs it, they won't give you the room. So you want to inquire about amenities on the ship. You want to know if the pool lift is working. I RSVP for an escape room, and they did not tell me that there was a stair lift to get to the stair room.
Which was broken.
And no, it was
Okay.
working, but I needed a manual chair because I was in a power chair. So once I get on the stair lift and I get to the top, then what? So I had to reschedule, and they let me use one of their medical, emergency rooms that they have on the ship, manual wheelchairs, and I was able to do the escape room, which kind of sucked because I was really low to the ground and couldn't see anything, but besides the point. And if you're unable to physically use a manual wheelchair, you should definitely avoid ships that need to tender. Tendering is when the ship is too big and it cannot port on the island, dock into the port directly, requiring you to go from the big ship to a smaller ship to the port. So, and that smaller ship does not accommodate, or boat, I think it is, not even a ship. It does not accommodate a power wheelchair. So the bathroom, it wasn't bad for me and my needs. It has the handrails, it has the
Down
What?
seat, the shower
a
handle.
flip down shower seat and the handle that you can hold to shower. But I don't like flip down seats because I'm a thick girl, and I just don't think it can hold my weight. So I found a plastic chair somewhere on the ship or maybe in my room, and I substituted that and sat on that, and I was okay. But be mindful not to damage any of the furniture because you'll be responsible for it.
It'll be on your credit card.
So accessible excursions I have here. One friendly site that has reasonable experiences with cruises are wheelchairescapes.com. I definitely say utilize the accessibility service department, and US owned islands tend to offer, better accessibility while other countries don't, obviously. But I will tell you, tipping goes a long way, and the local staff are eager to assist once you start throwing out that money. I was a princess in Haiti, honey. For $20, I was a princess. Yeah, service dogs, contact, accessibility services. You're not allowed to leave your dog on the ship, or in your room. Remember, most importantly, the ADA only applies in the United States. You will need documentation from your veterinarian and each country's port. So if you're porting at 4 different places, you need documentation from each of those, and you have to pay for those. Ports which are owned by, it says airline here, but I meant cruise line. They're considered U.S. territory, and your dog is allowed. So for instance, Coco Cay for Royal Caribbean, she had no problem getting off with me there. They also provided this little box with what's that called? Mulch?
Mulch, yeah.
Mulch in there as a designated pet relief area.
This is on the ship.
It's on the ship, yeah. Bring a power strip. For those of us who need, I don't know if you should be plugging a ventilator in a power strip, but a nebulizer, you have your wheelchair you need to charge, you have your cell phones, you have all these different things, and there's only like 2 outlets on the ship. It's wild. So bring a power strip. Be mindful of allergies. I learned this the hard way. I got on the ship and I was going across one of the main floors where the welcome aboard party was. And I'm going on this ship, and I just so happen to look up and I see hundreds of latex balloons suspended above me. And I was like, well, that's interesting. So then I asked the staff person, I was like, is that there for looks or something going to be happening? He was like, no, that's for the welcome aboard party. They released them. And I was like, oh, good to know.
I'm not going to be here.
I won't be there. Thank you. For those of us who don't want,
No, I got it.
For those of us who don't want to pay for the Wi-Fi, bring walkie-talkies because that'll help communicate with others.
Again.
And again with the tipping. If you
Tipping.
need assistance on that beach, tip. Alternative travel. So we have Amtrak. You got obviously the red cap service. You got notified travel with the service dog. I've had issues with that, but mostly not.
And Amtrak is pretty good because I think within their whole process of ordering the ticket, you can add the service under there.
Yeah. And accessible restrooms are available. Greyhound, you want to come, I haven't traveled, disclaimer, I haven't traveled on Greyhound in a while, but I know at one point you had to travel at least 24 hours in advance. And if your ride requires a connection with a non-Greyhound, you also have to contact that carrier 48 hours before traveling to make sure that the bus is accessible. And then the Megabus.
Megabus can be a really cheap way to travel if you know in advance. You can reach out to them, order your ticket, and PCAs ride for free. I've used them many times to go to DC. Admittedly, it has been a few years, but it's definitely a means to get in. They use a ramp, a portable ramp that they attach to the bus, but it is accessible.
That's it. That's
And
done. Yeah,
That
that's
is
it.
the end.
Fin.
A lot of information.
A lot of information. We went really fast, but you know, if you guys want the slides, we can provide that.
Thank you so much to the both of you, and honestly, that is a great presentation, and I'm glad we gave you the full time to do it. I've got some hands up. I know I've got one hand up. Liz, you have a question, and then we'll go on to the next speaker.
I do have a question. You said that when you put your electric chair in, when it goes in cargo, right? You put it so that they can't turn it on. So then how the hell are they gonna move that big shit?
Push
Push
shit.
that mother lover.
Also, you're gonna put it on manual.
Yes.
I showed them, I like on the C pen, I have a picture of me pointing to the lever that should drive or, you know, manual.
Yeah, but they're not gonna be there once the other country or state, right? Whoever you
No,
showing.
but we leave it on manual.
Yeah, it stays on manual, and this paper is still on my seat, so when we get to the next place, all they have to do is read.
Yeah.
Never write, I don't know if I said that in that slide, but do not write a whole thing. Try to make it as quick as possible, you know, because if they're not gonna read an autobiography, then you gotta make it simple.
And if you can, translate it into Spanish, because a lot of the ground schools are Spanish, unless you're going to a different country. I put the slides and the presentation in the chat for those who want it.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you very much. And just a reminder,
Thank you.
please do not share the slides or anything without first asking Jessica and Jose, because they do a fabulous presentation, and I'm so glad that they were able to be here this evening to help to share that with us. And please stick around because we may have questions at the end. I want to move on to our next speaker, who's also a Jessica Tambor, and she's got an experience to share with all of you, or experiences to share with you, I suppose, while flying with a ventilator. So, Jessica, the floor is yours.
Hi, my name is Jessica Tambor. Okay, there we go. I have brown hair and brown eyes, and I'm sitting in a power wheelchair. And so I'm gonna tell you what it's like to have a ventilator and travel and go places. Does everyone know what a ventilator is?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right, so I'm gonna try to share. Yeah, okay, so here. So I've been on a vent since I was born, and my family's been traveling since I was little. So here's the first picture of, this is me when I'm like 4 or 5, and we went to Fire Island. And this is a vent back in the early 90s. So vents over time have changed drastically, but in the early 90s, a vent was a big, very big, heavy, square box with a lot of knobs. So, and over here is a big car battery. The only thing that used to power a vent back in the day were big car batteries. And you would have to attach that battery to a wire in the back of the vent in order to power it. And this whole thing used to be on my power wheelchair. So just think about a power wheelchair, and then the weight of a power wheelchair, and then the weight of this. It was very very heavy. So here we are in Fire Island. They put my vent on a stool and they put a plastic bag around it so there wasn't too much sand. And so that's one way they did it. For a vent, you do always need power. Not so much now because nowadays, I'll show you another picture, but the ventilators have their own power now. Like your laptop has a battery, it has its own power and a phone. Now ventilators have their own power, so you don't always need to have this big heavy battery all the time. So fast forward to now. Did the picture change for you? 1 second, I'm gonna try again. Do you see? Okay, this picture of my dad. You see that one?
Yes.
Okay, so here, this is a ventilator. Nowadays, you can throw the vent into a bag and practically put it on your back. And the vent has its own. The vent I have now has a touch screen and its own battery. So you no longer need to carry around car batteries. The ventilator I have now can last 12 hours on its own battery. But you do always need to have plugs and some sort of power because eventually the battery will die, but the batteries can be swapped out easily, unlike back in the day. So whenever you travel, like Jessica said, you want to have a power strip because even though you're supposed to put the vent into a wall outlet, you also are gonna have a humidifier and a suction machine and a power wheelchair and tons of other things that need to be plugged in at the same time your vent is plugged in. So you always need to have power. And like if you want to go camping, for instance, my family used to go camping and you can't be in a tent, you have to go glamping into a cabin. So upstate New York has Jellystone camping grounds. So you can have the whole camping experience, but they also have wheelchair accessible cabins. So you have power, but you're also in the middle of a camping ground. So stuff like that is really good. When I was in 4th grade, I wanted to go to camp with one of my best friends. And the camp is Southampton Fresh Air Home. And they had to figure out like how I would be able to have events at camp. Because remember, this is the 90s. And this is where I met Jessica Della Rosa also. We both went to same camp, so she probably remembers. The dorms we had at camp, they had power, but they were kind of old. But they were able to figure out. At first, I was a day camper for the first 2 years because they needed to know how exactly was someone on event gonna be a full-on overnight camper. So my family agreed to me being a day camper, just for like 2 weekends to see how it would go in the summer, and that went well. So by the time I was in 6th grade, I became a full-on 3-week overnight camper, and we set up my vent and all of my equipment right next to my bed on the windowsill, and Jessica knows like how the whole setup was and
She was
everything.
ready.
Right, Justin?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
yeah. Yeah. So I had my own set up in like the last bed of either the last bed of the dorm or the first bed. Each year they would switch me up, but I would either be the last one or the first one, so I had the most room. And my nurses growing up were very willing to go everywhere with me. Like I had a bunch of really awesome nurses that would go to camp with me and or go on my family. We would go to Disney and my family would go to Disney and sometimes my nurses would go. And when you fly with a ventilator, so like I showed you in the first picture, so you used to have to fly with that huge vent battery. But nowadays you don't have to worry about that too much, but you always have to put the vent into the under the seat in front of you. So it fits easily. The vents nowadays fit easy right in to the seat in front of you, right underneath, and then the battery lasts. To go Disney, it's only 2 or 3 hours, so the battery will last. When I was a senior in high school, I had the opportunity to go to Ireland with the physically challenged Irish American youth team, and my nurse was willing to do it. And at first, they were going to take me in 11th grade, but they figured out at the very last minute that my vent would blow out the whole entire power of the whole building in Ireland, because the power system is different than it is here. So they had to spend the next school year rewiring or getting a generator. I don't exactly know all the details, but they had to redo the power so that we can power a vent. So in the summer of my senior year is when I went to Ireland. And that's like a 7-hour flight. And we had a second vent battery to do it. But it worked out fine. And I didn't blow out the whole power of Ireland. So that is a consideration when you want to go overseas. You need to consider the power source of whatever country you're going to. But if you're just going in the country, I've been to Florida, South Carolina, California. The vents are as airline approved, so it's technology that can go on an airline. But the flight attendants might freak out. So first you have to go through security. And just imagine going through security with like your vent, your suction machine, and all of your equipment in a suitcase. So it becomes a whole ordeal, but eventually you get through security and we have a doctor's letter just in case the security freaks out, or once we got on to a plane and the flight attendant freaked out and then wound up holding up the whole plane, and then eventually we were able to take off. But yeah, stuff like that. I also went to Utah with the same place Jessica went, just a different year. And that's at a higher altitude. So usually I'm off my vent most of the day, but when we went to Utah, I was on most of the day because they figured it was a higher altitude. Either way, it was fine. That's another thing to consider. When I went to college, we had to consider. I stayed in the dorm at Hofstra, so we had to consider. Just there was enough plugs, but it just had to be allowed because most people don't stay in the dorm with vents. So, they just had my doctor write a note that it was fine, and my parents were fine with it, and my nurses were fine, and it all worked out. And some other pictures I would show you. So more recently, here I am on a train. Just the vent has its own battery, like I said. So I was on a train coming back from I think we would come back from Atlantic City, but the Greyhound broke down, so we had to take a train back. So there I am on a train on my vent, and then here's another picture of me at the games for the physically challenged with my friends, and you can see I have the vent on the back and everyone, and we're on a bus. And this is more recently, like in the last few years. But yeah, the major thing is you always need power, like a power strip. And if you're going on a plane, make sure you have your doctor's note that says that it's FDA approved and you're allowed to be on. Because even though it's allowed, like, getting through security. And yeah, that's pretty much it.
Okay, thank you for sharing, Jessica. Very much appreciated.
You're
Next,
welcome.
I'd like to introduce someone who I must say we asked her to come on tonight because she's really got an amazing story of something that who knew could happen to anyone. And that would be Colleen Flanagan, who has an amazing story to tell about what you do when your wheelchair breaks. So, Colleen, if you can take it away.
Thank you, Brandon and Chris, for inviting me.
You're welcome.
I was not asked to have slides. I didn't think anyone was going to have slides, so I have no slides.
It
But
wasn't a requirement, trust me.
No, it wasn't.
So this is really, Brandon said this story is about something that, like, we don't think will ever happen, but actually I knew this could happen. Maybe I just thought I'd get lucky, but wheelchairs do get destroyed on airlines and aircrafts. I like interaction and borderline chaos, so feel free to get off mute or raise your hand and do a reaction, but I'd just like to hear not like a story, but just like show me or tell me somehow, has anybody here had a damaged wheelchair? Like I know Jose, and yep, Jose's putting a thumbs up. Jessica,
I
you
have.
mentioned, yeah, here, other
Uh-huh.
Jessica. Shamika, your hand is up. Thank you. And Amani, thank you. And I saw that Mark Shaw wrote in the chat that he had an experience where his manual wheelchair was bent horribly on a flight, and it was a hell of a fight to get it fixed or replaced. And any advice? And while I was reading that, I see a whole bunch of other hands went up. So thank you for sharing that. Wheelchairs do break, and we all know that. However, traveling is a beautiful part of life. And despite the lack of policies or leadership to make it easier for us to fly, because all those tips that Jessica and Jose gave were great, but we have to do a lot more work than people without disabilities do to travel. And that has to change. But that is not what Chris and Brandon asked me to talk about. So, but that does have to change, and we do need to do something about this.
Talk about it, by all means, talk about it.
Well, we will, but so when my wheelchair did get damaged, it was a power wheelchair. I used both a manual wheelchair and a power wheelchair, and I forgot. I use she, her pronouns. My camera's on. You can see the plants behind me and my windows. That's about it. I got a boring background. I'm a middle-aged white woman with salt and pepper hair. And I am a little person because I have osteogenesis imperfecta. So I've always used a wheelchair. I was born disabled. My manual chair has been damaged many times, and I did make the mistake that Jose pointed out and left the airport, which was the biggest mistake. Because if you do not go immediately to it's the baggage claims office. They really do think the wheelchairs and other medical device is luggage. Literally, you have to go handle it like you do damaged luggage. You'll get handouts when your wheelchair breaks, like this is what to do if your luggage is damaged. It's so insulting. I'm sorry if this has happened to you in the past and even in the future. So when my wheelchair broke, my power wheelchair broke on a flight from Boston to DC in April of 2023, it was destroyed to the point it wouldn't power on. So there was no option to be able to leave the airport. It was obviously a challenge because I had no mobility at all. You get stuck in a transport chair, which is not the aisle chairs. I see some heads nodding. You know what the transport chairs are, right? Yeah. And being a little person, I mean, that was like, because I'm like 3 feet tall. It was huge. You can't propel it yourself. You've lost all independence, and you probably have to go to the bathroom because you can't go to the bathroom on a flight, which I did need to do. So extra annoying thing because now you can't even independently move around. Never mind try to use the bathroom. I just couldn't in that crazy transport chair. Then they'll put you on the phone with a company that all the airlines hire to deal with people when the wheelchairs break. They are not securing these wheelchairs. They're not always listening to the notes and in explicit directions that we tell them and post on our wheelchairs. They're just treating it like luggage and seeing what happens. When my power chair got destroyed earlier this year, they claimed it fell out of the plane. And that's why it was smashed to smithereens. There was no argument. They knew it was broken. It didn't power on. It wasn't that type of situation. But what was difficult was because I am of such short stature, they had a hard time finding a loaner chair. But they will find you a loaner chair. Sort of. What they did is they got like a folding, crappy, never seen such a thing in my life, folding power wheelchair you can buy at Walmart for like $1,000. It was ridiculous. And it's not very durable. It got stuck in every curb cut I tried to use in DC. And then when I got home, the regular National Seating and Mobility and New Motion, just like any other time your wheelchair gets damaged, that's who you have to deal with to get your own personal equipment back. It's horrible. It is. That said, and I really want to leave time for you guys to ask questions or share your thoughts or even your stories. I like to listen. I did get my chair fixed in 58 days, which to you all here, because I recognize a lot of you as part of the disability community, probably seems like a pretty short time because the battle that you have to do with all the different players involved, National Seating and Mobility, the company that the airlines hire, the airlines themselves, it takes a long time. But I recently started a new job. I need that power chair right now in my personal life, really bad. So I actually used my social media and all my friends that I knew to try to use the press to bring attention to this, to make it so that there was more pressure. I don't know if that really worked or not, but I will say, in addition to that, I held nothing back and apologized for nothing. I ended up speaking to vice presidents and presidents of what's called global repair, which is what all the airlines hire to deal with the people whose wheelchairs they break. And I asked them, do you use a wheelchair? Do you understand that I can't meet my responsibilities because I need my customized equipment? There is no temporary solution. I need my equipment back. And those conversations were incredibly uncomfortable, but they maybe worked. Like I said, it could have been a lot of different things. Kathy asked what airline was this. The airline was JetBlue. But again, I've known people who have had damage on flights on United, on Delta, on American, they all go to this other company, Global Repair Group. And then you have to deal with them. And they are professionals to deal with angry disabled people to try to tell you to wait for all your independence back. It's wild. So I like to leave people when I speak with like, here's tips of what you can do and different things. But this one is hard because there, I applaud everybody for traveling and trying to educate the people to not, drive your chair into a wall or try to, what Jessica called a 5-man lift and then drop the chair or let it fall off the conveyor belt or whatever happens. But what we really need to do is to change the system so that we don't have to be crossing our fingers and holding our breath every time we travel and maybe even avoiding some trips, because that's not right. So let me just take, again, without slides or any structure, I probably just rambled way too much, but does anybody want to say anything?
Any questions for Colleen?
Well, I want to make a
Violet.
comment.
Yeah.
I would just want to comment that, if you do travel and you do experience a damage or a bad experience, definitely take a page out of Colleen's playbook, so post it on social media, reach out to all your friends, have them share it. The person that their chair was left on the tarmac, she had it retweeted something like 70,000 times. It got media attention. And work with organizations like National ADAPT, United Spinal Association. They're all working on legislation or changing legislation to make things better. Airline Bill of Rights that is more expanded. The Air Carrier Access Act, things like that. And they're send out alerts all the time. It's slow, but if we don't do it, it won't get done at all.
And don't let it discourage you, like Colleen
Yes.
said too. Yeah, like don't let it.
That's
I
what I
have-
get to. Who said something?
I was
Oh,
gonna
wait.
say, I have comments,
Johnson.
is, I agree with you. Changes need to be made, because I'll tell you one thing, I would never in my life travel with my power chair. Never, ever, ever.
I know. And by the way, I haven't since I've been on the train, but I live in Boston and that's going to be limiting. We have to be able to travel with our power chairs. At least for me,
Don't
I am
travel
not-
without my power chair. I can't push a manual. I have OI, my arms break like nobody's business, so I just can't push. But
Yeah.
I just wanted to say that to say in the time that I have traveled my whole life as a power chair user, it has only been damaged twice.
It happens.
And
And
my
I,
chair is damaged
I
too.
always have my power chair, no matter where we go.
yeah.
Any other questions for Colleen? Any comments?
Yeah,
Anything?
there is, because Kathy Collins, hi, by the way, asked if I filed a complaint with the US DOT. Yeah, like multiple. Because loaner chairs broke. It was more than one complaint. I don't think
That's really good. We need that. And we need to start probably a database to gather all the organizations, one major database of all the complaints, so that when we go to Congress or we go to even the shareholders of these companies and say, you're ruining your company's goodwill is being ruined, and your stock's going to go down. So you really should make sure this is changed.
Yeah, there's so many different ways we can threaten them to make change, and everybody's saying all these good things, but one thing I'm not hearing is we gotta rely on each other. There is how many people? 43 people on this call, and I've seen a lot of you around, and this issue is obviously important. And I want to be fair. There's some comments in here, they're longer, so I'm gonna try, but there's also Patrick Reagan said, one thing I learned is that airlines hire companies who supposedly specialize in repairing wheelchairs. My difficulty's been with the company who's supposed to help, not Global Repair. They were horrible and really did nothing. I had to find a company to do the repairs. The company was supposed to do the repairs, but they didn't play. So it's a collection for repairs. Oh my, I'm just bad at reading log things. I'm sorry, but it wasn't the fault of the company. Okay, but I had the chance to tell the person, the airlines, I think, need to hire professionals. I agree, Patrick, and there's more, but again, I agree, they need to hire professionals. And I have another thing that the airlines need to do, and it's actually more the airports, because I think everybody understands that there's different staff for the airports than there are the airlines, right? Well, all those staff that work for the airports that are pushing wheelchairs and helping us with assistance, they need more rights so they don't have to push 2 wheelchairs at a time or be demanded to lift wheelchairs that they have no idea how to lift or how to operate. They need more training. They want more training, I think. But I think that's something that we would have to advocate for too. And Shamika wrote, that's why I love traveling on the train, because I can stay in my chair and use the bathroom easier. And agreed, but you can't take the train overseas. I have never been overseas, but I'm gonna go one day.
Yeah.
Jessica's been to
Europe.
Europe.
No,
And
I'm
to Europe on a train, so.
Can't go to Puerto Rico on a plane.
I can't.
I mean,
Train.
I know. So Jessica Tambor, do you have?
Oh, yeah. I was gonna say a good thing about the train is they have plugs, so you can plug in a vent on the train. Like I went to visit my friend, and that's what we did.
Yeah.
Yeah, I went to actually visit Jasmine in Pennsylvania. From Pennsylvania to New York, it's like over 4 hours or something. So you can plug the vent in on the train.
Yeah, there are a lot of good options for people to travel, but we need more. Kevin, did you go off mute?
Yep.
I'm sorry. Oh, now you're back on mute. Sorry. You went off and then I talked. Do you want to say
Oh
something?
no, I'm done.
No, Kevin.
I find with the companies that give us or are supposed to give us assistance, and especially with people that need to be transferred, they they will send the smallest people that will have no physical ability to actually transfer people.
Yeah, and there's also no training. Thank you. Agreed. There's a lot to add.
I find that even though they say that, even though those companies say that, oh, they'll provide you someone, it doesn't always work out that way. Also, the concept of pre-boarding never exists. Pre-boarding, they give you 5 seconds before they board everybody else. At least some airlines do. But some airlines are better than others. They will actually give you time.
Agreed, but also disagree, because I think all modes of transportation need to expand to better serve people with disabilities.
Yeah, I agree.
We can travel, we are traveling, but there are a lot of opportunities that we are missing that we need to seize, and we can't until there's policy change around this issue. I think I'm done, but Brandon, Chris, thank you everybody for letting me share this space. Like, it's good to see a lot of you on Zoom. So
absolutely. Chris, you have your hand up?
I just want to make this real quick. Colleen, I want to thank you, send a strong, huge thank you on behalf of myself and Brandon for taking the time to come here tonight and share your story, because we've worked together on so many different things, but I think that we need to get the word out there that things like this happen, and it's extremely important because not everybody knows about these things, or not everybody thinks, hey, maybe this won't happen to me, but unfortunately, those things happen. And like I said, I just wanted to, thank you for coming to share your story, to share your thoughts and your, ask questions and stuff like that. So thank you once again, Colleen.
Thank you, Colleen. I'm going to allow one more question from Darlene, and then we're going to move on to the next speaker.
I'll wait till after the speakers. What are, yeah, I'll wait, sorry.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you, Darlene. All right, second to last, we have Marilyn Tusi, who is, I don't want to call her what I want to call her because she doesn't like it, but she's an amazing advocate. She is blind from here in Suffolk County, where I am. She and I work together, and she is an amazing traveler. She goes all over the place. The woman can't stay home after having anesthesia done. So please, if she can't do that, trust me, she gets out. She goes places. So she's going to share many stories, but one particular. But she's going to talk about traveling with a cane and now a guide dog. Marilyn, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Brandon. And Brandon made me laugh because he's right. I was supposed to stay home yesterday because I had a procedure done, and they said, stay home. And I said, what, are you crazy? Not sitting home because I had
The woman laughs at me, scolds me for making a wrong turn.
But anyway, I'm happy to be here and share some of my stories about traveling. I've been a traveler for many years, and I've seen all the changes in the airlines. I have been on ferries. I have been on cruise ships. I've been in, I lived in Hawaii, but the cruise ship and Hawaii, I did not have a guide dog. Sorry, I didn't back in those days, but just didn't. I've been using guide dogs for 35 years. I do keep up my cane skills. So once a month, I do go out with my cane, and I have very good cane skills. I think I've been blessed with mobility. I really have. So I'm going to share a couple of stories because when I travel on Amtrak or any trains, I never have an issue. But I've had a few issues flying over the years. And the first issue I had was when I was flying down. I used to go every other month to see a friend of mine in Virginia Beach. People thought I was crazy. They go, you flying again? I said, yes, I am. I have to go visit my girlfriend in Virginia Beach. And we always had a good time. So I would leave from work on a Friday and I would come back Sunday. My husband would drop me off at the airport and then pick me up on Sunday. So the one time that my husband decided he's going to go with me, because I used to travel by myself, and people always used to say, aren't you afraid you're by yourself? I said, no, I'm not by myself. There are thousands of people in this airport. I'm not alone. There's plenty of people here. But I guess people find it hard to understand how a blind person can travel by themselves. I always called up the airlines. I always made sure somebody was there to assist me to the plane. Getting on the plane, I would always board first, and I would always be the first one to get off. Well, this one day that my husband decided to go with me, we had a problem. Never had a problem before. He comes with me and we got a problem. The plane that was before us going to Virginia Beach was bumped. So all those passengers were on the plane that was supposed to be our plane. So now we get on there, and I always ask to sit in the bulk seat because I have the guide dog, and that's where the most legroom is. We get there, and there was this man in the seat. And, my husband said, excuse me, but we have the bulk seats. And the other person said, well, I'm not moving. I have the bulk seat. And they did have the bulk seat, but on the plane before us. So I said, I'm not trying to be rude, but I really do need to sit here with my guide dog because it has the most room for her. Well, I'm not getting up. This is my seat. Now the stewardess comes over and she says to me, well, you could sit in the back, but she divided me and my husband, which, was okay. Now she sits me by the emergency exit. Blind people are not allowed to sit at the emergency exit because if something happens, we are blind and we can't get you sighted people out. So she comes back and she said, oh, you can't sit here. I said, you just put me here. And my dog was a little cramped. And she goes, well, you can't sit here because it's the emergency exit and you're blind. And I'm thinking to myself, are you kidding me? In the dark, I'd be the first one to help people out because I'm already in the dark. So I said to her, I can't believe that you're telling me this. So now she makes an announcement because there were no seats. And she said, would somebody like to change seats with this woman because she can't sit at the emergency exit because she's blind? There was dead silence on the plane. My husband started to get up and he was going to sit there and change. And then this other man said, I'll change with her. So now I'm sitting next to this man who we really didn't have any room in the seats. And he had his briefcase under there. He had everything on top. So there was very little room for me and the dog. We were squashed. And he says to me, I'm so sorry. He said, I could see it's very tight here for you and the dog. I said, it's all right. I'm only going to be on this plane for like less than 2 hours. So when we got there, now I'm supposed to get off first. Well, the stewardess let all these people start to get off. I'm trying to get in the aisle and I'm asking people, please stop. You're going to trample me and my dog. Please let me go off the plane. Now, my girlfriend was waiting and she knows I'm usually the first one off and she sees all these people and she's thinking, oh God, did they miss the flight? You know, because always the first one off the plane. Nope, we came out in the middle and it was one of the gentlemen on the plane that actually stopped everybody and said, stop, let this woman and her guide dog get off the plane. Meanwhile, my husband was making the biggest ruckus there. You know, he was so pissed off. But I put in a formal complaint and we each got an apology letter, my husband and I, and we got a $50 each certificate to fly on that plane. You know, the next time we fly it was $50 off for each of us. But it was a really bad experience. And I was just livid at how she could make an announcement like that. This woman's blind and can't sit at the emergency exit. You know, and that to me was so demeaning, you know, for her to say that. And usually I don't have a problem. And the second problem I had was when I flew to Florida. I went to the villages with my girlfriend. We were spending 7 days there. And everywhere we went, we had a great time. No problems with my guide dog. The day we were going home, there had to be a problem. So we get into the airport. I'm going through security. And I didn't beep. You know, I gave my dog the stay command, sit. I gave an extended leash. She walked through it. Of course, it's going to beep because she's got metal on her harness and her leash. So they were giving me a hard time, the TSA agents, and they said, can you take that thing off the dog? And I said, that thing, you mean the harness? Yes. I said, no, under the law, I don't have to. So my girlfriend says, please, Marilyn, do it. She could see a problem was arising. So I said, okay. I took it off. She said, okay, go through the metal detector. Now I don't beep. I pull the dog through it. Of course, there's metal on the leash, even though there's, you know, leather on it too, but there's metal. So they said to me, can you take the leash and collar off? I said, no. I said, I didn't really want to take the harness off. I said, but under the law, I do not have to. This is a guide dog. She's my eyes. So they go, all right, you have to go through the metal detector again. I said, why? I didn't beep. You know, there was nothing on me. So I give my girlfriend the dog because my girlfriend's going, please just do it. And she holds the dog. I go through. I don't beep. Now she's handing me back my dog. And they go, oh, you'll have to go through the metal detector because you touched the dog. And I was really starting to burn up inside, trying to keep my composure. My girlfriend went through there. And it was this woman that was doing all this. And I said to these 2 men there, or 3 men, I said, I think it was 2 men that I thought were there, but I found out later there were 3. And I said, I'm being harassed here. I said, I would like you to get a supervisor. So they go, she is a supervisor. I said, well, there's somebody above her, and I'm requesting that you go get that person because she is harassing me. So I said to her, all you have to do is wand my dog, and then we could go. She said, well, no. She said, you're going to have to go through it again. And I said to her, oh, sorry, everyone. I said to her, no, I'm not going through it again. I said, you've already broken the law. And she's like, just looking at me like, I'm going to harass you. I'm not going to let you go. And I said to her, you know what? You're in a lot of trouble. I says, you not only broke the law, you harassed me, but you harassed a working dog, which is against the law. So finally, she let me go only because I yelled, lady, you're pushing it now. And the whole place heard me because I screamed at the top of my lungs. Everybody was looking. Plus, she was holding up the whole line. All these people are backed up because, she decided she wanted to pick on me with the dog. Well, long story short, I said to her, you wait till I get back to New York. You are in trouble. As soon as I got back to New York, I put in a formal complaint. I told them foil the videos that are there because I want all of you to remember there are videos. So if something does happen in the airport, you ask them to foil the video, and they will. And they did that in my case. They saw her harassing me. They saw the other two, but then they told me there were 3 men there. I only thought there were 2. And because they refused to get a supervisor when I asked numerous times, they all 4 of them were demoted and they were retrained. And I was really shocked that they told me this because I really thought they were going to be fired, especially that woman. She was just one nasty person. But, if you don't stand up for your rights, and I knew my girlfriend was upset about the whole thing, and I said to her, you have to stand up for your rights. You can't let people push you around. Just because I'm blind and I have a guide dog as my mobility device doesn't mean I don't have the same rights as everybody else. Want my dog and let me go. So it was just the whole incident was upsetting, but I was glad I received an apology letter, which my boss has in the file. And I did a system change there because the following week they told me that they had 3,000 blind people for the NFB convention coming into that airport. And they said, we don't want any problems with any of them. So I said, well, you do the right thing by them and you won't have any problems with anybody with a disability. But if you treat us that poorly, you will have problems. So my boss thought it was funny because he said, my God, Marilyn, even in another state, you made a system change. I said, yeah, I didn't start this when they did, but I said I had to advocate and stand up for my rights. So it was just very, disheartening. But with all my dogs, I have been to many states. As I said, trains, buses, planes, ferries. I've taken every means of transportation. My dogs have also gone to Great Adventure, Hershey Park, and Disney, and they have gone on rides with me. So, and I have pictures of a few of my dogs on rides with me. Unfortunately, I can't show them because I don't know how to do that. But yeah, wherever I go, my dogs go. And I always tell people that, this dog is a part of me. It's my eyes. And, I say to people, well, I said, how would you like somebody to say, don't bring your dog or leave your dog home? I say, well, do you wear glasses? And they say, yes. I said, take your glasses. Oh, I can't see without them. I said, I can't see without my dog. So that's just a few stories that I wanted to share with all of you. But I've been to many states with my dogs. I think the longest I've been on a plane was probably 5 hours from New York to California. I think that was about 5 hours. But my dogs travel very well. I don't give them, I give them very little water a few hours before I leave. I don't feed them at least 5 or 6 hours before I go somewhere, but I always carry their food on the plane with me. Before 9/11, I was able to carry bottles of water too. But I just make sure that, my dog has water when we land and food. It's one of the first things I do, and then I break the dog. So I've been fortunate, never had an accident, traveling with my dogs. So I've been very fortunate. So I just want to thank Brandon and Chris for letting me share my story. And thank all of you for listening.
Thank you, Marilyn. I know you can't share the old ones, but can you share the current beauty, Wiggy?
Yes.
Oh, well, she's not up here with me.
Oh, she's sleeping. Okay,
Oh,
shame on
okay.
her. She's too busy. I'm sorry. We have a coworker that loves her, so she's resting to reserve her love for tomorrow. So
Yeah,
we
she's
do a
my coworkers.
yes. She loves her. Every time she comes in the room, she just jumps up and wants to play. Meanwhile, me, she runs away from me, and I
Okay.
wonder why. But anyway,
Well,
thank you, Marilyn. Does anybody have any questions for Marilyn before we move on to our final speaker? And just raise your hands if you have any questions.
Bring up.
Kathy?
Yeah.
Yeah, I just thought that was a great thing about FOIA, for the videos. I never even thought of that. So I'm glad you mentioned that about doing a FOIA request for the video with the TSA agent. Thanks,
Yeah.
Melanie. That was fantastic.
Thank you. Well, I don't know if any of you could see her, but she's up here.
I do. She's so cute.
Isn't she cute?
Nice.
Walking away.
She's walking away. Wiggy, come on.
Shy. She's camera shy.
Wiggy.
Likes to take pictures.
Right.
I have Malik, Darlene, and then Jean.
How does foiling the video work? And
They
you
pull
need
the video and they
room
watch.
accessibility at the hotel.
They pull the video when you request them. They pull the video and they watch it. It's just
Uh,
like when you're on a paratransit, something happens, you say foil the video, they watch
uh-huh.
it and they tell you what they saw.
Okay. And do you have to request an ADA room if you need more room, or how
Nope.
do you about that
No.
with your?
I don't need anything special for the dog.
All right. Thank you.
On a plane that I need the bulk seat.
Okay. Thanks.
Darlene, and then Jean.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, first of all, Marilyn, I think you did an awesome job with foiling the video. But second of all, I do security, and as a person with a disability, I mean, I think a lot of security people need to be more well versed as far as different types of disabilities, or as I like saying it, different abilities, because people don't seem to always understand people that have service animals, the rules with service animals. Nowadays, you can't bring food into different venues. Well, some people need food because of disabilities, etc. And that was kind of what I was going to bring up earlier. I just didn't know what the next topics were that we were going to talk about. Sorry, I was kind of running a little late on the video, but that was just what I was going to try to say, because this is just different things I've been, you know, encountering both as a person with a disability and also in the workplace, having to deal with, trying to explain even to my supervisors, how to, let them know about America with Disabilities Act, because some of my supervisors didn't even know how to respond to people with certain types of disabilities.
Thank you, Jean.
Hi. I used to fly a lot, and now I fly sometimes. COVID put a dent in my flying. And you never know how you're going to be treated by TSA, and it seems like they're always shorthanded and rushed. But I had one woman at the San Francisco airport who I can move my legs and I can walk a little bit, but I use a wheelchair and I only travel with the wheelchair. And she was trying to shame me. And she said, well, my daughter's disabled and you're so lucky because you can walk and stuff like that. And she shouldn't have been doing that. So I complained to her supervisor and I said, who else can I complain to? And they said, your congressman. because they're, they have some jurisdiction over airports and airlines. So I did complain to the congressperson. I heard from, them, and, that person got retrained. She was really in the wrong job. Like you had like with your experience, uh, oh, I can't think of your name right now.
Marilyn.
Marilyn. Some people shouldn't be dealing with the public. And I also had a problem, one of the last times, trying to get on. I was supposed to be boarded first and I was boarded last. The woman didn't let me on, didn't want me to go on, but I have a wheelchair now that's travel chair, and it has lithium ion batteries and they have to be brought into the cabin. So I have a bag for them and my seat cushions and my joystick, and I'm allowed to bring medical equipment on the plane. And this woman, she just had a really bad attitude and she just wanted to stick it to me. And so finally I kept insisting I had to get on the plane. Well, of course, everybody had boarded, and I had been there for hours. And she said, "You're abusive. I'm going to call my supervisor," which was the best thing ever. So he came and he thought he was going to see some crazy woman screaming and yelling and carrying on, and there I was sitting there quietly. And I said, "She won't let me on because I have this extra bag and of medical supplies." And he said, "Well, of course you can get on." And he let me on. Uh, but, sometimes you just encounter somebody having a bad year or a bad day.
Thank you, Jean. Very true. And sometimes it takes that supervisor, to really pull the strings, as it were, without really pulling the strings. Just reminding employees they need to be retrained. We see that a lot, and it's just outrageous the way things go. But I just want to thank those who have shared so far. And again, if anybody has any other questions, please feel free. We're going to move on to our last speaker, who's done his fair share of traveling, Chris Murphy, and he has traveled quite a bit. And he's going to share some of his experiences, and he's got many of them.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Chris Murphy, and I would like to just start off by thanking each and every single one of you for being here today. I know that we started off with a couple of technical difficulties, but hey, those things tend to happen. But as I said, my name is Chris Murphy. I am one of the co-coordinators for accessibility for Downstate New York Adapt. I still help out with them, but I am also running my own chapter, Southern Minnesota Adapt, and we actually did both co-sponsor this particular presentation, and it's been a very incredible almost 2 hours so far here of this presentation actually taking place. So I must say that it has been, like I said, a great pleasure to be here with all of you. I am a totally blind, half Native American male. I am sitting in my living room kitchen area right now at the table of all places, and I am wearing a headset. So as Brandon said, I have actually been flying by myself for basically 20 years. I started the first time I ever flew alone was way back in 2003. I was about 15 at that particular point in time, and I remember doing it without a cell phone. And that is very scary because when you're a totally blind person and you're doing it for the first time, it is even more scary when you don't even have a way to contact people. Of course, this is back in the day when, payphones and stuff were a little more common, but that's when I started flying alone. And everything was successful, believe it or not, for 20 years. Flown to places, Minnesota, many times, which is, of course, where I live now, back to Connecticut, which is where I used to live, Little Rock, Arkansas, among others. Well, my good luck with travel issues basically going smoothly ended. I was traveling to DC in July of this year to go to a planning meeting for ADAPT, and I received an email maybe about 15 minutes before I was supposed to go to the airport. and it was American Airlines telling me, your flight's been canceled. So, of course, it didn't give a reason why. So I called the airlines and I said, I'm supposed to be on such and such a flight going to Washington, D.C., Reagan Airport. What's going on? Well, little did I know, of course, that the weather was bad in another part of the country, which, of course, was affecting everything. So I said, what can you do to change my flight? So because I had travel insurance, they were able to do that. But the flight that they had put me on, which I never got an email about, was full. So I went to the airport thinking, well, I'll be getting on a flight later on that evening, and I was going to be switched to American Airlines at this point. So I'm making phone calls to people telling them, hey, my flight got delayed or canceled. I'm going to be on another one getting in later. I'm in the airport. I was in front of the American Airlines counter, and they said, what's your confirmation number? And I said, well, I don't have it. So they said go back to, or Delta Airlines rather, so go back to American Airlines and obtain that information. So I go back to American Airlines, and they told me that, well, we weren't able to do this because the flight that you were trying to get on was full. Now, of course, keep in mind there was bad weather everywhere. There's thunderstorms and some pretty nasty stuff going on. I think it was on the East Coast, actually. So I'm an hour and a half away from home at this point in the airport, and I told the person that was helping me, who was very nice, by the way, and I'll get to that particular story in just a little bit. I said, I need to be in D.C. this weekend, whether it's later tonight or sometime tomorrow. And they could see by this point that I am totally blind because I was standing there with a white cane. And I said, I'm an hour and a half away from home. What's the next available flight that you have going to Washington, D.C.? Nothing tonight, of course. So there was nothing that's going to get me into the airport at all in D.C. Later on that evening, unless I wanted to go to BWI and have to take some type of transportation. But not even that, mind you. So they said, the next available flight we have for you leaves at 7:30 in the morning. It's getting you in probably at about 2 o'clock, 1 o'clock in the afternoon. So I said, that's fine. Going through Charlotte. Now, by this point, I'm still in the airport, and I really had no clue what I'm going to do because I'm nowhere near close to home. The closest person that lives in Minneapolis was about 20 minutes away, and I would have had to leave at the crack of dawn to get back to the airport. So the individual who was assisting me said, let me see what we can do about getting you a hotel. And there's a Courtyard by Marriott literally right by the airport. And he said, well, normally we don't particularly do this unless there's a different type of issue. But they were actually able to pull through for me and got me a room at the Courtyard by Marriott. Now, keep in mind, this is the first time anything like this has ever happened. So we get the hotel figured out, and then I'm trying to figure out how on earth to access the shuttle. Of course, I'm panicking because we all know how that goes when things change. And lo and behold, of course, as I'm standing outside trying to figure this out, I see the email that has the information in it. And I call the hotel and I said, I'm totally blind and I'm having a little bit of trouble trying to get the shuttle over here. So the person working the front desk at the hotel stayed on the phone with me until the shuttle showed up that night. And I got to the hotel successfully. And one of the things that made that experience so much easier to get through was the person that was assisting me was also legally blind herself. So she had a bit of an idea of how to not only guide me, but also how to assist. They actually did put me on the first floor of that particular hotel. So the next morning, I needed to leave by 4 a.m. No joke, because I needed to be at the airport fairly early to catch that flight just to get out of there. And I called the front desk right before I was about to go to bed, and I said, I know that we set this up, but I just want to confirm that the shuttle's coming to get me at 4 in the morning. And they said, yes, you're good to go. Sure enough, at 4, a little bit before that, the driver of the shuttle themselves actually comes knocking on my door to make sure that I got to the shuttle. And he actually, believe it or not, got me a cup of coffee right before we were about to exit the hotel, and I was able to get to that flight successfully and actually get to DC right when the meeting had actually started, but I was able to get there. So never in 20 years had I ever had something like this happen, but it was definitely an interesting experience because, I'm sure many of you have had these things happen when you've had things change. What on earth am I going to do? How am I going to figure this out? Because I was really hoping I wasn't going to get stuck in the airport overnight. And oddly enough, when I was checking in, I ran into the same person, believe it or not, was helping me get the assistance that I needed with that particular day's reservation. And I said, so just a question, what exactly prompted you to give me that particular hotel room? And he said, well, you had a circumstance that warranted it to be done, and I felt that this would be something that I could do to help you. And he tried to make sure that I was going to be safe, but I was also going to be able to get to where I needed to go. And I said, so, what other circumstances would have that qualified for? Well, weather, of course, being a key thing, but, because I was an hour and a half away from home and all of this stuff was taking place, and it was definitely, like I said, a very interesting experience going through that, because there was a flood of emotions going through my mind of like, what on earth am I doing here, and how am I going to figure this out? Because, like I said, 20 years of flying, no issues, and this is the first time it has ever happened. Of course, keep in mind the other couple of times I traveled this year, in August and then again in September. As of recent, nothing happened. So that was, I think, the most interesting experience for me, traveling as a totally blind individual and traveling as a cane user. One thing I also want to mention is that I was coming back from Connecticut on my trip for a vacation for 10 days. And the person that was guiding me was going to leave me in baggage claim before going down to the shuttle to get back to where I live. And I said, you're not going to leave me in baggage claim, because I'm going to file a complaint against you if you do. And I think his boss must have been standing somewhere in the general area, because he changed his tune real quick after I said that, because he was literally going to leave me in baggage claim and not allow me to get down to the other area where Land Air Express was. So over the past few months, I've definitely had some interesting experiences as a totally blind person and a cane user, but I will say that it definitely taught me a lot about, things can change on the quick turn of events, and it was something that I definitely learned a lot from, and I have almost had to put my advocacy skills to use a couple of times, and fortunately I was able to do it in July, and I almost had to do it again in August. So that's my experiences that I've had so far, and I just want to say once again, I want to thank all of you for being here today, for coming to this presentation. It has been a total pleasure to have all of you here. So thank you, and hope you enjoy the rest of it.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you for sharing. I want to thank all of our speakers tonight. I think every one of you did a fantastic job. And I want to ask, does anyone have any final questions for anybody before we conclude? Otherwise, we will conclude. Mark?
Hi, Chris.
There it goes. Hi, everyone. I I just want to give a quick review of Amtrak. Um, I've traveled a lot on Amtrak over the years, and they've always been very helpful. Even when the last the last time I drove, and I was on Amtrak rather, they forgot to take my luggage off the train. And I told the gentleman it was my luggage, but he didn't pay attention. So I got my luggage about an hour and a half later. So I did. And the time before that, um, they forgot to put my walker on the train going to DC. So they put it on the next train, and in under 15 minutes, this security person comes running looking for me and says, "Here's the walker." But I was just reminded of this presentation that when I came back from Massachusetts to Pennsylvania, I did have my service cat MC Cuddles on the train with me, and Amtrak was very helpful. And MC Cuddles, he enjoyed the ride. As long as he can see me, he's fine. But if he knows we're together and he cannot see me, he gets very upset. So yeah, MC Cuddles did ride Amtrak, and I had forgotten about this until the presentation came about. So I wanted to share that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mark. Darlene?
Yeah, I wanted to ask everybody, just because I do security as my job, but I wanted to ask people, what type of problems have you guys had besides like at the airport and with like traveling by trains, like when you go different places, just like locally traveling, like going places, if you're going to a concert or going things like that. Because I mean, traveling with a disability could mean different things to different people. Have you guys had any problems or difficulty doing things like that? Anybody want to respond?
Anybody want to answer that?
I can jump in really quick. I kind of alluded to this earlier. I've had an issue where during the holiday season, I called like the local, it was like it's not local, it's like interstate, between cities buses, and said, what happens if you get overflow? Because my accommodation at the time, I could walk a little bit better when I was younger, was I just need a seat. Like that's the only accommodation I need. I need to be able to sit down. And what happens if you guys get overflow? And they said, oh, it's not a problem. We kind of expect that during the holidays. So if we have too many ticket purchasers, we have a second bus. And I'm like, all right, fine. So I get on a bus, and we get to a city in our state that has really heavy snow, and that's where you transfer buses. And they said, oh, we actually don't have enough seats for you. So you can either stand for 2 hours, but you're not allowed to sit in the aisle, and we're not going to make anyone move. And my choice was to get dumped in the city that was like the bus station wasn't open anymore. The buses just stop and they transfer people, but the station itself isn't open. So I was either going to get dumped in a blizzard or have to stand in a bus for 2 hours. Halfway to my destination, and neither of those were options. And I told the driver I refused to get off the bus. He's like, you will get off this bus. And I'm like, no, I'm not going to get off this bus. I called ahead. I made this, accommodation. You guys said if you had overflow, you would have second buses. You don't have a second bus. You don't have a second driver. And finally, like the bus didn't move long enough that some girl that could like kind of overhear us moved. Like she decided to stand just to get the bus moving. But that was the, you know, like, and I've had this happen a lot. Like like the drivers won't do anything, or, you know, some staff member is the problem, and you end up kind of shaming some like bystander to help you, and that shouldn't happen. You know, the bus company should do their job, blah, blah, blah. And I've had really similar instances happen with, you know, TSA and other stuff. I drive, so I try to, like, even for work trainings, I'm not working right now, but for work trainings, I've driven multiple states over. My boss is like, well, why don't you just fly like everyone else? And I'm like, because there are a lot of X factors that I'm not going to deal with. Like even bringing my worst wheelchair, you know, dealing with TSA. If I get stranded somewhere, I can't take some of these other forms of transportation, you know, that other people can hop on, right? You know, just take a cab there. It's fine. Don't worry about it. Or like take it, you know, but like it's like no. And so I do as much as possible and be as independent as I can and self-reliant as I can and involve as few people as I can in any transportation, um, any transportation situation. But I know that's not always possible.
Thank you, Justice, very much for sharing that. Anybody else want to respond to that question? Okay, does anybody have any other questions, comments, grievances?
Hi, Brandon, I have a comment.
Sure, go ahead.
One time, it's funny now to look back on, but it made me mad at the point in time. I went to go to Denny's restaurant with my family, and the quote unquote shift manager was like, get that drunk out of here. That caused a whole lot of whole lot of whatever whatever you want to call it. But like my mother was there and she threw a holy hell fit.
Oh boy. Yeah, that happens a lot, unfortunately, and because, you know, people don't realize.
Yeah.
And it's a shame, that's for sure. Any other comments, questions?
Hi, I just wanted to say something.
Sure.
I'm a mom of a 32-year-old, and I've traveled. He was very, very challenged and physically challenged and wasn't physically capable, but understood everything. And I've really struggled and traveled to India, traveled to London, and lots of places in America, and have really horrifying stories to share if I wanted to. But I just have to say, I really applaud all of you. And please don't stop advocating. Please don't. You all are really, really phenomenal. Thank you so much for this talk.
Thank you very much for sharing that. We really do appreciate that. Anything else
Can I
from
just
anyone?
say something real quick?
Sure.
One time I was feeling kind of like off, I guess, and I was on the bus in Albany, and I asked for a seat, and nobody wanted to give me a seat, and then finally I was just holding on with all dear life to the thing that you hold on to on the bus, and I mean, I was like really, I guess it was like in a pre-or stage for a seizure, like where I was like right before a seizure, and I couldn't like really verbalize anything else. And then soon after that, I guess it was the bus driver remembered it wasn't too long after I said that, because people were trying to fight with me, I guess, over that. I ended up falling and hitting my face right onto the bus thing, and I ended up having a seizure. And then the kids well, I call them kids, but the students were so pissed because they were getting to their class late because the bus driver had to call an ambulance.
Wow.
Because I fell and had a
Wow.
seizure on the bus.
Oh my God, that's unbelievable.
I mean, you can't see everybody's disability either. I mean,
No. And that's another thing that's so important to note is not everybody's disability is present. You can't see people's disabilities all the time. I mean, look at Chris over here. He says half Native American. What's the other half?
I'll call it half mutt because I don't know what it is.
There you go. There you go. Anybody else have any comments, questions, anything?
Can I hop in again really just quick?
Sure, absolutely.
I kind of commented this earlier. What's too bad right now, and this is the like larger political stuff, is like one of the best bills addressing airline travel isn't going to pass just statistically. Like it's got 1%. You know, it's only sponsored by one party, and so advocacy is important. But I know for the transportation team, I think and then nationally, like National Adapt, we need to find a way to get the other political party to co-sponsor some of these bills, you know, just to get them through. I know that's a big lift. You know, we're not responsible for the dysfunction in national politics, but we got to find a way because that's how like the ABLE Act got passed, was bipartisan co-sponsorship, you know. Because some of these bills, and not this isn't the only one, there's stuff around SSI too. They just get sponsored by one political party and that's just not enough traction to get them through, and we need to find a way. And I don't know what that is, you know, I don't have a silver bullet for this at all. But we need to get you know, I'm in a district with one of the most conservative people that doesn't think government should exist, you know, so getting her on as a co-sponsor is probably a long shot. But you know, I don't know if moderates exist anymore, but finding the moderates that can actually like get some of these bills across the finish line would be super. And I know other people, this is their specialty area, so I don't want to bogart that call, but thank you. That was my last comment.
Thank you.
Thank you. Patrick put something in the chat, but also his hand is raised. So go ahead, Patrick. Okay. Can somebody read the chat that he put in?
Yeah, sure. This is Colleen. Has anyone experienced hotels not providing wheelchair accessible shuttles, but providing hotel shuttles for people who don't need wheelchair lifts?
Anybody have a comment on that?
I was gonna say that hotel shuttles are definitely something that should be addressed. We usually made our own arrangements from the hotel to the airport and airport back to the airport to the hotel to the airport. But I know that there are certain hotels that do provide shuttle service, and they should definitely provide an accessible service if they're gonna provide a service at all.
Yeah. Also, Disney is very big on having their own accessible transportation. Once you get to Disney, everything, the boats, the buses, all that's accessible.
We'll take one more comment or question.
Disability Rights New York has a video on accessible shuttles, by the way.
That is true.
Yes, it is.
Mark will be our last comment and question, and then we will be ending.
Thank you, Brandon. My question is, what can we all do besides? What can we all do to change things for the better?
Simple. Advocate, advocate, advocate.
Yep.
Very simple. Call your politicians, get involved with your politicians, go to meetings, involve yourself in the community. Don't just want the change, fight for the change. And that's what everybody needs to do. And we all are advocates here, or at least we want to be advocates. So it's very important for us all to continue the fight. And there's a lot of things to fight for. I know there's many issues. One says, how can you keep up with every single issue? Just read up on these issues and fight for what is important. And that's so important to do, is to follow up, because without our change, without our voices, without everything, nothing gets done.
That's true.
That's the furthest thing from a lie in any way. I want to thank all of you for coming tonight. This has been the most amazing evening. We had the largest attendance. I want to just tell everyone, 44 people at one point, or 45 people at one point on this Zoom.
Yes.
Over 70 people watching on Facebook. And I don't even want to know how many people are going to be watching after this gets sent out. If you want to watch this again, there will be a YouTube link coming to all of you who registered. We have your email address. We'll be sending everything to you. At the end, if there's any resources that you need, you can always contact us. On behalf of Downstate New York Adapt and Southern Minnesota Adapt, I want to thank all of you for coming tonight. And thank you. We hope to see you again next year for this event again.
Yes, thank you very much, everybody.
Take care.
Take care.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Thank you.
Good night.